It is the greatest tale ever told. The Torah itself, God's divine document that serves as a moral compass forever for us. You can look at it from a microscopic perspective or from a telescopic perspective. What I'd like to do with you is just to look at the first three scenes, the first three acts, where we see humanity tested, where they sin and how they respond. Before we dive into those first three acts, just to get a sense of this telescopic self that represents the Torah, the first letter is a bet for Breshit. The last letter of the Torah is a lamed at the end of the word Yisrael, Israel. Now, any normal book you'd open in a linear way because it's a linear text. When it comes to the Torah, it's cyclical. When we end the Torah, we restart it. It's in scrolls. Therefore, the last letter, Yisrael, comes together with the first letter, Breshit, Lamed and Bet, making the word heart, suggesting to us that if we learn and relearn this incredible scroll, that serves as the heartbeat of Jewish continuity. It's our literacy that sustained us. More than our capacity to learn the Torah is what sustains us as a people. So let's dive in. Let's start with the first Adam and Eve story, and let's go right at the beginning to see the first sin and the first response. God settled the human in the Garden of Eden to till it and tend it, where they're to serve and preserve. And God commanded the human, saying, of every tree of the garden you are free to eat. But as for the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat of it, for as soon as you eat of it, you shall die. God called out to the human and said to him, where are you? He replied, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, so I hid. Who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree from which I had forbidden you to eat? The human said, the woman you put at my side, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And God said to the woman, what is this that you have done? The woman replied, the serpent duped me, and I ate. So what was the response? The classic blame game. Man blames woman blames snake. Everyone shirks responsibility. If we're looking at responsibility as the ability to respond, what is a response? A lack of personal responsibility. Hillel famously says, Im ein ani li mili, if I'm not for myself, who am I? You have to take personal responsibility. Adam and Eve shirked this responsibility, which led to a downward spiral, ultimately expelling them from paradise itself. That concludes Act 1, Scene 1, Adam and Eve, the first humans, the first couple. They sinned against objective morality, and their response was a lack of personal responsibility. What about their children? What happened next? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. Cain and Abel are born, and unfortunately, the first birth of the first two children ends up leading to the first episode of fratricide, siblings killing one another, or murder in the most simple sense. Let's see two verses in the text, verse 4 and verse 11, to get a sense of the sin. Cain said to his brother Abel, and when they were in the field, Cain set upon his brother Abel and killed him. Now just look at that verse. Vayomer Cain el havel achiv. Cain said to Abel. Usually you'd see colon, quotations, and what he actually said. But there's nothing there. What does he actually say? We don't see what he actually says. Perhaps this breakdown in communication, the fact that they had nothing to say, is what led to their ultimate demise. Let's go to the next verse. Cain said to God, my punishment is too great to bear. How did Cain know that his punishment, his iniquity, was too great to bear? How did he know what he did was wrong? Adam was told that the tree cannot be eaten from. Was Cain or Abel or anyone for that matter ever told you can't kill someone? It's not written in the Torah, so how does he know? Perhaps this is the birth of natural ethics. He intuits that it's wrong. He knows it's wrong because it's wrong. He doesn't need to be told you don't murder. His iniquity, his punishment was too great to bear. He knew it was the wrong thing to do. So if the first sin was against objective morality, the second sense is not listening to his natural ethics. Let's look at the response. God said to Cain, where is your brother? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? Hashomer achi anochi? The famous lines. What have you done? Hark, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. What is the lack of responsibility in this episode? It's a lack of interpersonal responsibility. If the first was Adam and Eve looking at themselves and lacking personal responsibility, here Cain isn't taking interpersonal responsibility. Am I my brother's keeper? The answer should be yes, you are your brother's keeper. You care about him, you care about your friends, you care about your family, you care about those around you. But he asked rhetorically if he should have any connection to them. Ultimately, this lack of interpersonal responsibility reflects the response to the sin of a lack of natural ethics. We've seen Adam and Eve. We've seen Cain and Abel. Let's go to the third and final act for the beginning of the Torah. Of course, it continues all through them. Noah walks onto the scene, and we see the verse. This is the line of Noah. Noah is righteous. He was blameless in his age. Noah walked with God. And then we carry on through the verses. The earth became corrupt before God. The earth was filled with lawlessness. God saw how corrupt the earth was, for all flesh had corrupted its ways on earth. God said to Noah, I've decided to put an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with lawlessness because of them. I'm about to destroy them with the earth. God decides he needs to press a massive reset to restart the entire world, all of humanity, start from the beginning, starting with one man, Noah, his incredible family, and all the animals around him. What is the sin here? There's corruption across the board. All the flesh, everyone. There's all different ideas as to what the corruption was based on. Sexual promiscuity, theft, violence, all coming from this word chamas, which in the Hebrew refers to these different words. But ultimately, it reflects if the first sin was personal responsibility, if the second sin was a lack of interpersonal responsibility. This is a lack of societal responsibility, a breakdown not just of the individual, not just of the family or friends or community, but the whole of society. When society breaks down, it's the beginning of the end. So God had to restart. How does one heal from this? What does God invite humanity to do, to learn and to grow? And the verse says, make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make it an ark with compartments and cover it inside and out with pitch. Make an opening for daylight in the ark. And so many different verses describing exactly how to build this ark. And I have one simple question. If the sin was a lack of societal responsibility, what is the new response? How do we turn things around? And that is based on one question. Why did God ask Noah to build an ark? If you wanted to start again, you could put something around Noah. You could take him out of the planet. You could do so many different things. I mean, you're God. Why was he asked to build an ark? Perhaps one reason can be gleaned from a midrash in Leviticus Rabbah. Not exactly on this part, but a story that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai told us. He talks in a more ancient language about an incredible cruise ship. You bought a ticket, you're in your room, you go to sleep, and in the middle of the night, you hear it's someone drilling in the ground. But hang on, you're on a cruise. You try to go back to sleep, and you hear it again. You go out of your room, you knock on the door, and someone comes with a hard hat on, with a drill in their hand, and with special goggles. They say, can I help you? You say, what are you doing? And they say, I'm drilling a hole in the floor of my room. You say, but how can you do that? He said, I spent a lot of money for my room. You spent a lot of money for your room. You can do what you want in your room, and I'll do what I want in my room. And the person said, but at the end of the day, if you drill a hole and water comes in, we all drown. This is the idea, I believe, of the ark. Everyone is dependent on one another. Every plank is dependent on another plank, and every person and every living being in that ark is dependent on each of those planks. We're all in the same ark. We're all in this boat together. I'd go one step further. What was in the ark? It was the ultimate example of a sense of the other. You had to look after elephants and monkeys and chimpanzees and giraffes and deal with feces and deal with animals that can't even speak to you. If you can do that, I hope you know how to deal with other human beings and interact with them. So God created an incubator for humanity to restart, to rebuild, and to regrow what they truly are there to do. Noah had to tend to the animals. Noah's family had to look after one another so they could learn that that is what society is all about. And that closes Act 3, Scene 3, Noah's Ark. We quoted at the beginning, Hillel, Im ein ani li mili, if I'm not for myself, who is for me? The next statement he says is Ukshani la'atzmi, mani, but if I'm only for myself, what am I? The first was about Adam and Eve, personal responsibility. The second is about interpersonal responsibility, Cain and Abel. And the third, V'im lo chshav matai, if not now, when? This has to go way beyond just our here and now. We have to help an entire society. And we conclude with the word achrayut, which means responsibility. The first letter is Aleph. Aleph stands for me, I. There's the elokut of godliness and the individual, the first person. Because you need to take it for yourself. Personal responsibility, like Adam and Eve. We need to take personal responsibility. Aleph Chet spells out ach, which is sibling, my brother, my sister, my family. Once we've established ourselves, it's about interpersonal responsibility, worrying about your family, your community, your friends. It then goes to acher, which is the other. The other is broader than your family, broader than your friends. It's the capacity to look after a society and to care for those that don't even know who you are and you don't even know who they are. Those three paradigms are echoed through the first three acts, the first three scenes, the first three episodes of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Noah and the flood. And then how do we carry that forward? The next word is Aleph Chet Reish Yud Acharai, which means after me. You need to lead by example. Follow how I do it, not by what I say, but by what I do. The next is Aleph Chet Reish Yud Vav, Acharav, after him, after her, after them. You need to have someone in your life that is a role model, that you can model things after. When you need to make a decision, Acharav, after them. Would they think that's an okay decision? How do you make that decision? Finally, Aleph Chet Reish Yud Vav Taf. This is the entire word, Achrayut, responsibility. The first letter is Aleph, the first letter of the alphabet, and the last is Taf, the last letter of the alphabet. The Aleph to Taf, the A to Z, the A to Z of responsibility, all encapsulated in this word. This describes a sense of the evolution of responsibility from Adam and Eve establishing objective morality and lacking personal responsibility, to Cain and Abel establishing natural ethics and lacking interpersonal responsibility, and finally Noah's Ark, a lack of societal responsibility, the capacity to rebuild, to regrow by looking after one another, even if we don't know them. If that's how the Torah started, and we want to get back to paradise, we want to recreate the sense of Garden of Eden, where we truly are there for one another, where everything's perfect outside, we need to do it by rebuilding one relationship at a time, learning this idea, the lamed, the bet, as we said at the beginning, the lev, the heart of Jewish continuity, the heart of biblical studies, the heart of ethical monotheism, is from learning, embracing, engaging with this text, not just as stories, but as lessons that we can live every single day. Thank you so much.